Today I'm joined by Keith Patterson. Keith's the Managing Director of IMI. And IMI specialise in the highest quality bespoke architectural finishes to lift car interiors, lift landing entrances, architraves and escalator cladding. So welcome, Keith.
Thanks, Simon. I'm pleased to be on the show.
Yeah, no, great. Look, thank you very much for joining us. Keith, it sounds really interesting what you do when architectural finishes to lift car interiors and entrances and architraves. And tell us a bit more about what that is and what it involves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people probably like me before I got into the industry, excuse me, you probably don't even realize that it is its own industry. Um, you walk along and you press the button on the wall to get in the lift, and you get in the lift, and you just assume that whoever put the lift there put all that stuff there. And actually, that's not how it goes generally on the larger scale projects. You'll have a main lift contractor will put in the lift in the shaft and all the shaft work, and they'll put essentially a metal box in the lift, in the hole. And everything you see when you walk into that lift, all the mirrors, all the leather finishes, wood, that's what we do. We go and we design it, manufacture it, and install it primarily on sort of tier one contractor sites in London. So I think your Battersea replenishment, we just did that, the escalators there a couple of years ago. One Broadgate, the Olympia redevelopment, we're in there. So it's quite interesting. And like most people, before I was in the industry, I didn't even know it was an industry. It's a whole thing.
It's funny, isn't it? How and this is why I love speaking to business owners and because managing directors, etc. Because it's great. Sometimes you come across these things, as you say, that you don't actually realise. Wow, you have to. You don't think that actually that's a business, somebody
Yeah,
doing that. So, and as you say, you've been involved in some really high profile projects. That was really
yeah,
the
absolutely. Yeah.
Shard was one of them. I think you sort of said you were involved in as well, which is so yeah,
Long time
really,
ago, yeah, that one.
yeah, really, high quality. So okay, so um, tell us a bit more about how you got involved in the business, Keith, because you're the managing director, aren't you,
Correct.
of the business? So how
I'm
did
not
you?
the founder though, no.
Yeah, so it was founded, I think, back in 2010. Was
That's
it?
right, yeah.
Yeah, 2010. So how long have you been involved, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so it was founded in 2010. Basically, a couple of guys that had been in the industry as a sales manager and what you would call a very experienced fitter decided to go out on their own and make their own small business. Um, so that was in 2010. Fast forward to sort of 2016, 17, and it had grown to sort of a £700,000 roughly company as in turnover. And at that point, it was them two in an office, another guy in an office, one or two people in the yard making everything, and one team on site fitting everything. And obviously, they needed to expand. Um, so I came on actually at the time as a health and safety manager because that was my previous experience. But because you're running in a small company, inevitably all amalgamates together. You end up doing a bit of project managing, a bit of whatever, bit of delivery driving,
Yeah,
And then 2020 rolls around, and the shareholders, the founders, wanted to retire. So yeah, they took a chance, and it went from there. We went from about 1.6, 1.7 million in 2020 up to 3.8, 3.9 million 3 or 4 years later, with some aggressive growth planning. Yeah, and then here we are, still going strong.
well, congratulations on that sort of impressive growth. Well done. So, okay, so, and I'll dig into that in a second. But when you had you always envisaged that you wanted to be a managing director, or was that just something that naturally sort of happened?
Um, I think I've been a bit fortunate in my career in that even from a young age, I was thrust into some leadership positions. So when I was very young, I was actually in the police from when I was 18 to I was about 24. So I left over 20 years ago. Even then, I was sort of doing a temporary sergeant role, um, and then I worked before here, I worked for a subsidiary of Walmart where I was an area trainer, so delivering the training to the leaders of the company. So I always knew that I wanted to be a leader. It's always been a passion of mine. I work on it a lot in my own time. Read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, watch all the things I can and try and learn as much as I can. So that combined with what appeared to be a natural progression, of course, I tried to grab it with both hands as soon as the opportunity came up.
Brilliant. Okay, well, and that's and that's interesting that you're using that sort of what you've developed and something you enjoy in applying that to the business.
Yeah.
And so, in your opinion, what makes a great leader?
Well, I've changed my thoughts on that as time goes on, as some people do. You get to learn as you're sort of building your capabilities and watching other great leaders in things that they do. So I like to read a lot of books. So like your David Novaks and the leadership pipelines and all that sort of thing. But for me, I think what makes a great leader is absolutely changing what you value at work from doing the tasks to building the team up underneath you that can do the tasks without you,
Yeah,
making yourself redundant
yeah,
and focusing on capability, but really with a really strong um, focus on accountability, building the resilience and the organizational capability. That's what I think makes a good leader. Spending the majority of, not the majority of your time, but a good portion of your time with your people, working with them.
all about people development. And there was there's a description of, well, it's more a description of management, that management and leadership slightly overlap. They're different, but they do
Yeah,
overlap. But there's a description of management that I really like. I'm not sure where I read this or heard it, but it says the management is the art and practice of getting results through others.
exactly. Yeah, couldn't
And
agree
I
more.
thought, that when you from what you just said there, that's
Yeah,
to mind. It's actually, it's not about the doing, it's about helping others to be the best that they can be, how they can get to achieve what they want to achieve, so that in the benefit of everybody and the organization.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
um,
couldn't agree more.
and and that's all about, and then it's the tools that you use to do that. That could be challenging people, motivating people, encouraging people, training people, whatever. But
Yeah,
it's that. Look, thank you for sharing that. I like that. And okay, so you became managing director about 5 years, four or
that's right.
five
Yeah.
years ago. Um, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you've had in the last 4 or 5 years since you've been managing director?
Well, it's actually it's an interesting question actually. The last year has been maybe about 18 months was the biggest challenge because what we tried to do a couple of years ago is aggressively grow.
Right.
So we moved to new premises, bigger premises, bought new machinery, lots of capital expenditure. And then what we really needed to do, which was, a failing, I would take as a failing of me previously, and only in hindsight did I realise that,
Yeah.
is that we never really had a management layer underneath what I would call the top management. So there's at the time there were sort of three of us near at the top, myself and two other directors, Sean and Josh. And we changed the structure so that they would sit underneath us operational and sales, and I would be the MD. And underneath them, we sort of had a few managers in different positions, but we didn't instill an SMT layer. What I'd
Right.
like to say is the operational hub, all on the same level, one team working together to push things through. And what that inevitably led to was dipping down,
Yeah.
i.e., me, or one of the other directors dipping into their work,
Yeah.
but those people dipping into their team's work. And it was only when I realised this sort of about 18 months ago what was happening, I couldn't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
That we had to really push this robust, don't work below your level, drive the decisions as far down the company as you can, And that led to some actual some issues. We found out, towards the end of the last year, we did have some poor performers, and unfortunately, I had to wish them well in their career somewhere else, and that was really tough to do. We had some people that have been with us a while, and I only figured out once we put in these sort of measures in place that we were carrying passengers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, so that was tough, and trying to build a culture positively while simultaneously letting people go does send a mixed message out to your team. So I think we're still trying to get around that now. But that was really tough. Yeah, that was a tough year because while we were doing all this dipping down and everything, we was losing client confidence as well because I didn't know who to talk to. Who am I supposed to phone for this? You keep answering me, but that person's supposed to be answering me. And almost took a reset, like a full reset. Right, stop. You know,
Yeah.
here's what we need to do, and trying to get people on board with that is hard.
There's there's a couple of things that really resonate with me with what you sort of said there, and I think the first thing is how important it is to have the right structure in a business, and along with that, everybody understanding their roles.
Mm.
And by the way, the roles are very different to the tasks. So it's okay, not just what do you do, but actually what are you responsible for? So having the right structure and everybody having clarity on, right, this is what I'm responsible for. This is what I make happen. But the other thing that really resonated with me as well is that last thing that you said there is that actually, well, let me ask you a question. What's the best way to speed up?
What everything is in decisions.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've borrowed a rule. I'm not sure where it came from, but one of my focuses with my team is making the fast decision as possible with the most information you can, but sort of setting it at an 80% rule.
Mm.
You know, if you don't make fast decisions, someone else will. Your
Yeah.
competitors will, whatever. So I try and instill on them, make a fast decision, get 80% of the information as fast as you can and make that decision. You know, it's diminishing returns to wait for 90%, but you have to wait another 2 weeks for that information, and you'll never get to perfection, as we all know. So that's the best way to do that. And I think absolute clarity, like you just said, clarity on roles and not and working to your level, I think will speed everything up.
Well,
And
actually, and actually, what you just sort of said there again, it really resonates with me in terms of and I can't remember where I picked this up, but there was somebody it might have been even Stephen Bartlett, somebody like that, Simon Sinek, that was interviewing one of the US presidents and said, and he said to the US president, he said, "What you make these massive decisions in America, but they don't just affect America; they affect the world.
yeah,
How do you make those decisions?" And the first thing he said was, "Well, firstly, I don't make that many decisions at all. I only make the really important ones because the team around me make all the other decisions."
yeah,
So again, like you said earlier, it pushed the decisions down to the lowest sort of possible level. So he
right.
only needed to make a few decisions, but they were the really important ones.
Hmm.
And then the second thing he said that he did, which was similar to what you said about the 80% rule, is he said he only makes sure that the probability is slanted in his favor of that decision. So in other words, if there's a probability that making that decision rather than that decision is the right one, he will make it. He doesn't need to be 100% right. Because if he waits to be 100% right, he will never make any decisions.
That's it.
So that what you just sort of said there, actually, whether you knew it or
Yeah.
not, you were working the
No,
same way as the
I think I
US
stole
president.
that.
By the way, it wasn't President Trump; it was a previous.
No,
But,
I think I stole that from Martin G. Moore,
right,
the
okay,
The Your CEO meant the No Bullshit Leadership, I think his podcast
Yeah,
is called. I think but I think he stole it from someone else,
yeah,
obviously.
exactly. So you hear these things go around,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah,
But the other thing is that you mentioned earlier about what you mentioned was actually to speed up, you effectively needed to slow down, if not to stop. Right. Okay. We've
yes,
got to
yeah.
stop this, guys, because this isn't working. This structure, how we're working now, it's not working. Right. Stop. Let's get everything working properly. Now let's speed up again.
Yeah, so how I worded it to my team, actually, you've just hit the nail on the head, is I said, there's a cliff at the end of where we're walking to. And if we keep doing this, yeah, we might be getting some quick wins now. Oh, we've just dipped down to get over this problem, but we're still crawling towards the edge of that cliff. And
Yeah.
we need to turn away from that cliff.
Yeah.
So we were sacrificing quick wins and forsaking the future of
Yeah.
the organisation. And that's what was the tough part, especially getting people to turn away from everything that they've ever known and say, don't do it this way, we're going to do it that way.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that says a lot for you as a leader of sort of saying, no, look, guys, no, this is it's going to be painful. We're gonna it's going to be difficult, but we've got to do this. Otherwise, we're gonna have a real issue in the future. And how I like to explain this, Keith, is that if you were driving a car with no brakes, how fast would you go?
exactly. Yeah, really slow.
Yeah, really slow. So what's the best thing to do? Stop, fix the brakes, and then you can go fast again.
Yeah.
So which is exactly what you sort of explained there. So yeah, look, I think thank you for sharing that because I think that will resonate with a lot of people that are watching this and saying, yeah, look, we've had similar experiences there, and I think you've shared some real nuggets there of key things. So if you look, Keith, actually, I'll ask you a slightly different question. If you could wave a magic wand,
Yeah.
what would be the challenge that you would like to fix today?
In the business,
Yeah. Well, in the business or related to you in the business, what?
um, I think the challenge that I've next got to do is, and it's a really boring one, is true succession planning throughout the business, albeit for me, the senior management team, and reduce down the key person risk as much as we can, which is actually something that I'm sort of working on. I only just started working on it a couple of months ago, but I think at the moment we've got a real danger of key person risk in our company, as in there's a guy in one department who leads that department who is the most experienced in that of all his team. And I was talking to him the other day. I was doing some sort of, some sort of feedback with him, and I said, finish this sentence. If you went, he's a manager, by the way. I said, what would people say? Finish the sentence. We've just lost our best, and he said, fitter. And I said, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
where we're going wrong, because you're not our best fitter. You should have fitters that are better than you, and you should be leading them.
Yeah.
And there's no shade on him.
No.
He's trying, and he's one of the people that's got to make this step from change his work values from doing the task to building the capability for others to do the task. And it is tough. It's really tough to get away from what you know. Um, and I think it's the same for their team members as well.
And I think this is the thing, that I always say that, um, we don't in organisations generally. By the way, this isn't applying to your organisation, but we promote people because they're good at their jobs. So you're
Exactly.
a great fitter, so let's promote you to be a supervisor. Oh, you're a great supervisor, let's promote you to be a great manager. But they don't get taught how to be a great manager. They were a great fitter, but not how to be a great manager. And as you say, it's not their fault. It's that
Yeah.
nobody's ever taught them how to do it. And so then what happens is they do what they think is best, and they learn it along the way, and they get build what could be bad habits and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a key thing. And by the way, I know you introduced that when I said what was that challenge, and you said, oh, it's a boring one, succession. Wow, but how important is it to have
Oh
a
yeah,
succession
absolutely.
plan in place? That
Yeah.
that
And
is really
that's what I'm now doing, is spending more and more time coaching my senior management team, to put these new values into them as much as I can and create succession for me, for them, you know, everyone.
You used the word earlier as well when I asked you about, leadership, and you said um, uh, about making yourself redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, somebody again said to me years ago, they said, Simon, the best leader is that nobody notices when you're not there.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
And you think about that, actually, that's true in a way, because actually the the business carries on because of
Correct,
what
yeah.
you've put in place, the processes, the systems, the culture, all of those sort of things. That is, by the way, that doesn't mean that it won't hit problems in the future, because it hasn't got anybody looking at the strategy and strategic thinking moving forward, and those sort of things. But actually, if you're not there, nobody really notices, and that's
Yeah, I think as far up as you go, you should always be trying to make it so that if you're not there for a month, or what happens if you go to hospital or something like that, you know, the business can't just stop. And there's a fundamental issue, I think, in a lot of businesses, which a lot of people might, you know, like you said, resonate with, is that too many things get escalated
yeah,
and the decisions should just sit at the correct level, I think. And it's
yeah,
about
empowering people to make those decisions,
correct, yeah, exactly.
but training them to make sure that they've got the ability to make the decisions and that they're confident to make the
That's
decisions,
it, yeah.
and having a culture of ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Speed over accuracy, like I said earlier, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
My guys all they've heard me bang on about it enough to I say bang on. I say, you know, make the fast decision. If you make a decision with the best intentions and obviously a reasonable amount of intelligence, I'll back you, you know, every step of the way. I value speed.
Yeah, which is exactly, that concept of ask for forgiveness, not
Yeah,
permission. Do what you
exactly. Yeah.
think is right, but don't think, but don't, and then if it's wrong, hold your hand up and go, actually, I made a mistake, but I made it with the best intentions. I was
Yeah.
doing what I thought was right, rather than ask for permission, not forgiveness. Because if you've got that culture of asking for permission, it's always going to be everything gets pushed up. I'm not
Yeah.
making the decision; it goes up to you. So yeah, I like you. Yeah, that sounds like you're building a great culture within the business, Keith. Well done. So look, Keith, there's one question I really like to ask everybody that's kind enough to join me on this discussion, and that's this: what is the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old you?
What a question. Um, well, I grew up sort of when I was 18, it was the mid to late 90s. So, you know, there was lots of going out and drinking that was occurring back then, you know, pre the COVID and no one having any money days. So first, you know, the less serious one would be put the beers down and start working on your career, because through fate or luck, I've jumped around careers, you know, from police to sales to training, leadership training to health and safety manager to MD. So I've done the layers, but I've done it in such an odd way. So I think I would say don't do what you love or what you think you love. Pick something that you're good at
Yeah,
and then stick with that. Because then if you get passionate about it, then you'll enjoy it anyway. And I think I kept trying to chase oh, I don't like this. What will I like?
yeah.
Work's work. It's not called fun time. We need to find something we're good at and stick with it, I think, is the advice I'd give to myself. Stop hopping around, concentrate. Um,
But I think generally, if you're good at something, you generally enjoy it as well, don't you?
exactly, yeah. I mean, you could argue that you wouldn't get to a quote unquote elevated position without some life experience behind you anyway. But I just think that and learn more. I mean, I've only really in the last sort of 4 or 5 years started picking up books about leadership and, you know, listening to podcasts and watching videos and I think when I think back to it now, I just think you're crazy. Why weren't you doing this 10 years ago?
Yeah,
It's crazy. Like the information is there for everyone.
yeah. I know. I agree. I think there's some quotes that I love. Like, I listen to Jim Rohn a lot, and one of the quotes that he says is, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. You know,
Right.
so in other words, you know, learn more. You know, there's loads of stuff out there, reading books and that sort of thing. Because if you work harder on yourself, you'll ultimately be good at, you know, better and better at your job anyway. And but you know, I like that. You know, what you just sort of shared there, what you sort of you know, what you'd say to the 18-year-old you. So look, Keith, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and
That's
sharing
great.
all about your business, but also your journey as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks.